fascinating about his list of accomplishments is that it seems to have no boundaries. Very eclectic mix of institutions and talents, and to me that's the mark of true genius. So without further ado, thank you, Simon, for being here, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Quick show of hands, who here would like to be invited to the TED stage one day? For those of you who have your hands up, how many of you would be ready if you were asked to give that talk tomorrow? What would you do to prepare? Maybe you'd begin by Googling it first. We kind of live in this ultimate age of how-tos right now. People use the internet to do almost anything. And even though those step-by-step instructions are available, many of the articles and the books that are there don't quite cover what happens when you're not ready to receive what you're asking for. So, whether you want to get a TED Talk, a dream job, or anything else that you want in life, you need to learn one important thing, and that is how to make the pitch. The first sponsorship proposal that I ever created was at the age of 11. I was in the 7th grade. My friends and I had just created a team to compete in our school's ultimate frisbee competition. And while a 7th graders really don't need sponsors, we thought it would be really cool to have some custom apparel to show up to these games. The reality, though, is that I didn't really know what I was doing. This was before the internet was widely used, and there weren't books in the school library on the subject. So there weren't any resources that I could go to figure out how to go about this process. So what did I do? Well, first I made a list of everything we wanted for our team. Then I thought about all the different people who might be able to help get us those things. Maybe the local alternative rock radio station, because I listened to it, clothing companies, frisbee companies, and those kind of things. But finally, I mailed a letter to the corporate offices of each of those groups, and I eagerly awaited their responses. Now, while that experience didn't result in our team getting the cool custom jerseys that we were hoping for, I did end up learning a valuable lesson about making an ask. You see, it was never about our team and about what those companies could do for us. It was all about what a sponsorship meant for that business and how working together could benefit everybody involved. In other words, it was more about having a partnership and less of a sponsorship. I needed to communicate the return on investment for those people. So several years later, I had another chance to apply those same lessons. When I was a junior in high school, I started our first ever school-wide Battle of the Bands. It was a huge event, and I needed the support of the local community. I even had to get my friend's older brother involved because I was only 15 and I couldn't technically sign the waivers that would contract a professional security company, a major sound system that could power an arena, or even the box trucks that we had to rent to move all the equipment. But to pull all this off, I really needed the help of those local businesses. So I took my bike. I went door to door of every business in the area. But I made a small change in my pitch this time. Instead of saying something along the lines of, "Hi, I'm from Monte Vista High School. We're putting on a fundraising concert. Will you donate something?" I instead said, "Hi, I'm from Monte Vista High School, and we're putting on an event that's going to elevate and promote local businesses. How would you like to be a part of the biggest concert in our school's history?" And then, whenever anyone said yes, I would tell their neighbors, the businesses next door, and everyone else who signed up, which immediately gave me a lot more credibility. The same concepts that go into developing a sponsorship proposal are the same for any kind of ask that you make in life. It could be distilled down to one thing, and that's the pitch. So if you want to get a dream job, if you want to get a raise at work, if you want to raise money for an important cause, or if you want to get that date, or you want to get a TED Talk, it all comes down to the pitch. Now, this is the part where a lot of people get wrong. They think the pitch is all about style, the how you ask. And while that is certainly important, I found that a good pitch really has 3 main parts. The first is that you simply have to ask. So a question that I get pretty often is, how did you get a TED Talk? Or sometimes, how did you get so many TED Talks? Simple realities, I went on the TED website. I clicked on events, and I contacted every single event in the world where I could communicate in their language, or I had an idea that would fit the theme of their community. It's not very sexy or dramatic, but almost every great achievement in life requires persistence and determination. I knew I had great ideas, so that wasn't the issue. I just had to convince other people that those ideas were the ones that their communities needed to hear. Nothing happens in life until you make an ask. Waiting and hoping to get an opportunity doesn't actually get you those opportunities. Remember, until you ask, the answer is always no. But in addition to asking, you need to have something of value to offer. So for those of you not familiar with my band, let me tell you something that we're really passionate about. Food. I mean, seriously, we actually strategically book tours around places where we want to eat. So, while we really did want to play Kansas City in 2011 because fans were asking for it, my secret reason was so we could hit up a restaurant that was on Anthony Bourdain's 13 Places to Eat Before You Die list. You know, I also noticed that the photos and videos of food did really well on our social media. People were always interested in talking to us about the very best food that was out there. But at the same time, I also noticed that the food guides published in our local media here in Portland were extremely lacking, especially when it came to reviews about Asian food. They tended to be very centralized, and they tended to ignore the actual communities that those foods were coming from. So we decided that we ought to do something about it. Something a little bit different. We wrote our own Asian food guide, and we used it to highlight some of our favorite restaurants. This time, our pitch to the community was about reading our reviews and listening to some of our music while they were doing that. So I used Yelp to help promote this guide, and I offered free music downloads to everyone who read our reviews. We even created little window clings to give to our top-rated restaurants so that they could brag about being on the best of the best list for the Slants, and had a link to our website. These two efforts led to about 45,000 downloads of our music. But best of all, I got a lot of free food from some of my favorite places. Something that I wasn't expecting, right? We just wanted to show some love to some overlooked restaurants, and the community responded in kind. So remember, whenever you want anything from others, it's all about creating that equitable exchange. In the world of TED, this is an idea that is worth sharing. But if your goal is just to get a TED Talk, you've already missed the point. Let me repeat that. If your main goal is to get on the TED stage for yourself, you are missing the mark. The reality is that if your goal is to give an incredible idea that you're uniquely qualified to share, then you've got something special to offer other people. Remember, the best way to get anywhere is to give generously. The world's greatest innovators aren't celebrated because they're major consumers. We admire and we follow them because they give the world better products, stories, and ideas. I mean, think about it. We give all kinds of awards out there for people who write books, but none for those who read them. Prolific readers are only lifted up when they're able to give back somehow, either through recommendations, literary analysis, or even contributing to the quote section of Goodreads. So if you're making an ask, be ready to give generously and to give something of value in return for those of the people you're asking. Now, the third and final part of the pitch has to do with you. Are you ready to receive what you're asking for? You know, many people say that they have this dream career, this ideal spouse that they want, but they aren't ready for those things. The reality is, if you want to be a leader tomorrow, you need to begin by preparing to be that leader today. You don't wait until you get there to figure it out. If you want the opportunity to be on the TED stage, have you paid your dues by cultivating an idea, and have you given back to your community? You know, here's a little secret of mine. I actually keep a Google Drive folder full of TED ideas. In fact, it's just called TED Ideas. Whenever I think of an anecdote, some useful information, or experience like a powerful moment in my life, I type it up and I begin working on that idea. Some of those ideas have marinated and developed over years, but if and when a TED event says yes, I have plenty of things ready to go. About 15 years ago, I was working with a touring punk rock band. It was the kind of band that I wanted to join, something that I made no effort to keep a secret. And for years I worked with them by booking them shows, flying out to festivals to photograph them, and connecting them with other people that I thought could help their careers. One day, in the middle of their tour, they called me and asked me if I played drums. They said they kicked out their drummer mid-tour, and they wanted to drive to my place in California to pick me up and finish the tour. The problem was, I wasn't exactly a drummer. I was a bass player. I had just started taking drums a few weeks before, and there was no way that I would ever be ready. I mean, that's the reality. No amount of passion or drive would get me to learn how to play drums fast enough to prepare for that tour. If they drove across the country to hear me play, they would have been really, really disappointed. So I had to say no. I told them, I need another 6 months until I'm ready. We can't ask for opportunities that we ourselves aren't ready for. If we want something tomorrow, we need to begin preparing for that moment today. We kept in touch, and I continued to help them every way that I could. But 6 months later, the reality is that I still wasn't ready. Drums weren't my thing. I told them I was a bass player. I didn't join the band, but I kept helping them whenever possible. Then, in early December of 2003, at 2 in the morning, I received another call. This time they asked if I wanted to move to Portland to be their bass player. I had a lot of excuses at my disposal. I was in my second to last term for finishing college with the double major on a full ride grant and scholarship program. I had an established job where I was a vice president. I was running 2 businesses that I owned. All of my friends and family lived near me. I had an established community. But I already knew the answer, because it was one that I was prepared to say. Yes. Now, while many people might say it was kind of stupid of me, especially when they learned the band broke up 2 years later, the very act of preparing for that moment unlocked a new kind of drive within me, and it helped to launch a new successful band without which I probably would not be giving you this talk today. Desire is not enough. Passion is not enough. You have to take that initiative. You have to give to others generously, and you have to prepare yourself for a moment where you can say yes. That's how you make a good pitch, and that's how you get a good TED Talk. Thank you.